They said it was the perfect wedding. Two rising stars, a powerful family, a picture-perfect love story. But just hours after saying I do, the bride was found dead, and the groom's father was hiding a secret that would tear everything apart. This is the story of how love, lies, and legacy led to murder on the most beautiful night of their lives. It was the kind of summer evening Atlanta hadn't seen in years. Warm but breezy, golden sunlight pouring over the courtyard of the Grand Magnolia Hotel like honey on silk. 200 guests had gathered beneath white canopies and crystal chandeliers to witness what many were already calling the wedding of the year. Derek Langston, 29 years old, stood at the altar in an ivory tuxedo. The kid from West Atlanta who built a cybersecurity empire from scratch. His company had just landed an $80 million investment, and Forbes had named him one of tech's rising stars. He looked calm, focused, the way CEOs always do when closing a deal, except this time, the deal was marriage. In the front row sat his father, Gregory Langston, a real estate tycoon, 52, a widower for nearly 15 years. Gregory had turned Langston Properties into one of the most powerful development firms in the South. His tailored navy suit, silver cufflinks, and calm gaze projected wealth, control, and legacy. He wasn't just proud of his son, he expected excellence from him. And then, the music changed. Every head turned. Monique Harris stepped into the aisle. 26. Stunning. Fierce. A rising star in architecture, with a national award for her eco-friendly design work in downtown Atlanta. She moved with grace in a silver gown that shimmered like moonlight. Her skin glowed a warm bronze under the setting sun, and her eyes held that spark, part ambition, part mystery. She looks like a queen, someone whispered. She did, and Derek, standing tall at the altar, couldn't stop smiling. For a moment, they looked like a perfect match, modern black excellence in motion. They exchanged vows. His voice steady, hers soft but strong. When the officiant declared them husband and wife, the crowd erupted in applause. Fireworks cracked in the sky behind them. Champagne flowed. Music roared to life. And as the reception took off, Gregory Langston raised a toast. To my son, and to the most beautiful bride I've ever seen. You're both the light of my life. No one noticed the brief glance Gregory and Monique shared over their champagne glasses. It lasted less than a second. But if you were watching closely, you'd swear it wasn't the look a father-in-law gives his new daughter. It was something else. Something electric. The celebration rolled into the night. 6 tiers of cake. Guests dancing in the garden. Monique and Derek posed for photos, danced their first dance, whispered to one another like no one else was in the room. Just before midnight, the newlyweds slipped away, laughing, waving, showered in rose petals and good wishes. The elevator doors closed behind them. That was the last time anyone saw Monique Harris Langston alive. By 8:02 a.m., the sun was already cutting sharp angles through the penthouse windows of the Grand Magnolia. Room 1901, the presidential suite, should have been quiet, still wrapped in the softness of a couple's first morning as husband and wife. Instead, it was silent. Too silent. Letitia James, the morning maid, stood at the door with a silver tray of strawberries, champagne, and croissants. Breakfast ordered the night before by the bride herself. She knocked. Waited. No answer. She knocked again, louder. Still nothing. Letitia sighed. She didn't want to intrude, especially not on a couple that had just tied the knot hours earlier. But rules were rules. Housekeeping had clearance. She slid her key card, opened the door, and called out. Room service. No reply. The living room was untouched. Champagne still on ice. Strawberries untouched. Not a single glass out of place. A chill crept up Letitia's spine. She made her way upstairs to the master bedroom. The door was ajar, and then she screamed. Detective Marcus Holloway arrived on scene less than 45 minutes later. At 44, he was a seasoned investigator with a reputation for keeping cool when others cracked. But nothing about what he walked into that morning sat right. He was greeted by the coroner's team, already setting up. Upstairs, in the bedroom, he found the bride. Monique Harris Langston lay on the bed still in her wedding dress. Her eyes closed. her hands folded neatly over her stomach. A half-empty wine glass and an open bottle of sleeping pills sat on the nightstand. It looked like a suicide. Too clean, too staged. Marcus moved slowly around the room, taking it all in. A life cut short. On the same night it was supposed to begin. Then he asked the question every good cop asks first. Where's the husband? Derek Langston was found just down the hall. Slumped against the wall, tuxedo rumpled, a dark stain on his sleeve. His eyes were bloodshot. His breath faintly smelled of alcohol, but not much. According to the hotel guard, Derek had been passed out in the hallway since around 2:30 a.m. When they woke him, he was confused, incoherent, and deeply upset. I don't remember anything, he kept saying. We had champagne. We were happy. We went upstairs, and then nothing. Detective Holloway took it all in. A young bride dead. A young groom disoriented. A glass of wine, a bottle of pills, a broken wedding night. It was supposed to be the happiest night of their lives. But inside the walls of room 1901, something had gone terribly wrong. And deep in his gut, Holloway knew this wasn't a suicide. This was a setup. Before they could understand how Monique Harris had died, Detective Marcus Holloway needed to understand how she had lived. And what he found raised more questions than answers. Monique wasn't just a beautiful bride in a silver gown. She was sharp, ambitious, and highly calculated. According to her colleagues, that was what made her so good. Born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama, Monique came from humble beginnings. Her father was a city bus driver. Her mother, a third-grade teacher. She was their only child, and by all accounts, she was brilliant. She won scholarships, skipped grades, graduated high school at 16. 4 years later, she walked out of UCLA with a degree in architecture and honors to match. Within 6 months of moving to Atlanta, she landed a junior architect role at Langston Properties, the real estate empire owned by Gregory Langston, a company known for excellence and secrecy. Something about her meteoric rise didn't sit right with Holloway. In less than 3 years, Monique was heading multi-million-dollar projects, appearing on magazine covers, and getting invited to elite development boards typically reserved for people twice her age. Too fast, too polished, unless someone powerful was opening doors for her. At Langston Properties, Monique was respected, but also resented. Holloway visited the firm's modern high-rise office downtown. The moment he stepped into the lobby, he felt the tension in the air. Word had spread. The staff were shaken, but not all were grieving. He met with a small group of Monique's closest colleagues. Most of them called her driven, intense, unshakable. But one woman, Kendra Lee, a senior architect with 12 years at the firm, was more blunt. Monique was smart. No question, she said, arms crossed. But let's not pretend she got where she was on talent alone. When Holloway asked what she meant, Kendra leaned in. She had access, let's just say that, to senior management, private meetings, overnight work trips, extra funding approvals. You talking about Gregory Langston? Holloway asked. Kendra didn't answer. She didn't have to. Everyone in that room knew, and the whispers had been going around for years. The more Holloway dug, the clearer the pattern became. Monique was promoted after only 8 months. She led projects usually reserved for senior designers. She was given authority far beyond her pay grade. And then, she started dating Gregory's son, Derek Langston. It was the perfect pivot, public, respectable, and distracting. If she was dating Derek, then surely she wasn't involved with Gregory, right? Or maybe it was part of the plan all along. To Holloway, the story was starting to take shape. A woman who rose fast, too fast. A father and son, both powerful, both successful. And now, one bride, dead in a wedding dress. The questions were piling up. And the deeper Detective Holloway went, the more he began to wonder, who was Monique Harris really in love with? And more urgently, who wanted her dead? Back at the Atlanta Police Department, Detective Marcus Holloway stood before a whiteboard covered in photos, timelines, and forensics. He looked at the wedding picture of Derek and Monique, smiling, hands entwined, the perfect couple. It was time to test that image, because what Holloway had now didn't match that smile. The autopsy report had just come in. Dr. Camille Holloway, his sister and the lead medical examiner, delivered it with a quiet knock and a heavy sigh. She didn't die from the pills, Camille said, laying the file on his desk. The wine bottle was real. The pills were real. But the concentration in her blood was too low to be fatal. Marcus opened the folder. Primary cause of death, strangulation. There were bruises on Monique's neck, light, almost hidden beneath her gown's high collar, but unmistakably finger marks, consistent with someone taller and stronger than her. Defensive wounds on her arms. And something else, skin cells and fabric fibers under her fingernails. We ran the preliminary DNA, Camille said. It's a male. And the fabric? Merino wool. Custom weave. Not something off the rack. Marcus already knew where this was headed. Derek Langston's tuxedo, ivory merino wool, made by a designer in New York, was already in evidence. So were the dark stains on his right sleeve. Initial tests suggested blood, though they still needed confirmation. More damning, though, was the surveillance footage. 12 a.m., Derek and Monique enter the elevator. They're smiling, holding hands. But as soon as the doors close, Derek's face changes. His smile drops. His jaw tightens. He stares straight ahead, cold and still. 2:15 a.m. He stumbles out of the presidential suite, alone. His tuxedo is wrinkled, one sleeve visibly stained. He slumps to the hallway floor and stays there until a security guard finds him. And his story? I drank too much. I blacked out. But Holloway wasn't buying it. The next morning, Marcus called Derek in for questioning. He arrived wearing sunglasses and a hoodie, tried to look inconspicuous. A lawyer trailed behind him, older, gray-haired with a permanent scowl. They sat across from Marcus in the interrogation room. Mr. Langston, Holloway said, I'm sorry for your loss. But I have to ask, can you walk me through what happened after you left the wedding reception? Derek rubbed his face. He looked exhausted, but not broken. We went up to the suite around midnight, he said. She was glowing, happy. We popped the champagne, talked about the future. And then, I don't remember much. You passed out. I guess I drank more than I thought. Holloway nodded slowly. Then he opened the folder. Your toxicology says otherwise, he said. Blood alcohol content was low, equivalent to maybe 1 or 2 glasses of champagne. Not enough to cause memory loss. Derek blinked. His jaw clenched slightly. I don't know what to tell you, detective. Marcus leaned in. Monique had bruises on her neck. She didn't overdose. She was strangled. And we found her DNA under her fingernails. Your suit fibers. The room went still. Derek's lawyer cleared his throat. Unless you're charging my client, we're done here. But Holloway wasn't finished. One more thing, Mr. Langston. Do you know anyone Monique may have been texting whose name starts with the letter G or L? Derek frowned. No. What? No reason, Holloway said, standing up. We're just connecting dots. But inside, his gut was screaming. Something about Derek's performance didn't add up. His grief was real, yes, but so was his control. Every word felt rehearsed, like someone who knew how to stay 2 steps ahead. For now, though, the evidence was stacking up. Heavy check marked the timing. Heavy check marked the fingerprints. Heavy check marked the surveillance footage. Heavy check marked the motive nobody had talked about yet. Because just hours before Monique died, Derek saw something. Something he wasn't supposed to see. And it broke him. What was it? That answer was coming next. Detective Marcus Holloway had seen enough cases to know when something wasn't sitting right. Derek Langston had motive, sure. Rage. Betrayal. The pressure of perfection cracking under the weight of reality. But something in his story, something in his eyes, said he wasn't the only one hiding something. The key? A single message. Sent at 12:30 a.m. Just an hour and a half before Monique was found dead. Everything went perfectly. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. G. And Monique had replied, Me too. Just be careful. D doesn't suspect a thing. I love you. G. Not Derek. Gregory. Back at the lab, the digital forensics team confirmed it. The message had come from a burner number registered under a fake name. But the call history, GPS pings, and SIM card data all traced back to Gregory Langston's private phone. And that wasn't all. In the last 90 days, there had been over 300 texts and calls between Gregory and Monique, most of them late at night, on weekends, and almost always deleted immediately. Every single one, except this last one. It was a breadcrumb Gregory hadn't realized he left behind, and now Holloway had the scent. That afternoon, Holloway requested Gregory Langston's financials. It didn't take long to find more evidence. Monthly payments, large ones, transferred to Monique's personal account. The first transfer, 3 days after she was hired at Langston Properties. The amounts? Nearly 10 times her official salary. The memo lines? Blank. Gregory wasn't just her boss. He was her benefactor, her protector, maybe more. And that changed everything. Next, Holloway met with the wedding photographer, a man named Jalen Parker. Jalen looked nervous, shaking hands, not used to homicide detectives knocking on his door. I didn't think this was going to be part of my job, he said, flipping open his laptop. But I saw something weird in the photos. Figured you might want to see. He clicked through the wedding album. 11:03 p.m., Gregory at the bar. Monique joins him. 11:06, Gregory leans in, his hand on her back, her eyes low, their faces close. Too close. 11:07, Derek enters the frame, staring. 11:08, Derek takes Monique by the hand. They walk off into the garden, and Jalen's voice dropped. They came back 15 minutes later, smiling, but fake, tight, like something had just happened. Holloway stared at the screen. One frame showed Derek holding Monique's phone, his face frozen in a storm of disbelief. So now, the sequence was clear. Derek saw something between Monique and his father. He checked her phone. He read the messages. And then, hours later, she was dead. But here's the catch. What if Derek wasn't the one who killed her? What if someone else realized they were being used? Back at the hotel, Holloway pulled the surveillance footage from an hour before the newlyweds returned to the suite. And there he was, Gregory Langston, wearing a staff uniform, hat pulled low, entering room 1901 at 11:45 p.m., 45 minutes before Monique and Derek arrived. When asked, the front desk said he had forgotten something in the room, but he never officially had access. He wasn't supposed to be there, and he didn't leave until 12:10, just in time for Derek and Monique to show up, completely unaware that someone had already been inside. Now, the timeline had shifted. Derek saw the messages, sure. But Gregory? Gregory had motive and opportunity. And maybe, just maybe, Gregory had learned the truth. That Monique wasn't planning to leave Derek for him. She was planning to take them both down. The next morning, Holloway returned to the Langston Development headquarters and requested a private meeting. He found Gregory in his glass-walled office, high above the Atlanta skyline. The man looked calm, collected, but his eyes were tired, his hands slightly trembling. Mr. Langston, Holloway said, "We need to talk about your relationship with Monique Harris." Gregory blinked, paused, and then exhaled a long, slow breath. "Close the door, Detective." Detective Marcus Holloway closed the office door behind him. Gregory Langston stood by the window, hands in his pockets, staring out at downtown Atlanta. For a long moment, neither man spoke. The city hummed below, but the tension inside that glass office was sharp enough to cut steel. "I'm going to ask you once," Holloway said, his voice low and calm. Were you in a romantic relationship with Monique Harris? Gregory didn't turn around. Yes. He said it so quietly that Holloway barely heard him. Then Gregory turned slowly. His jaw was clenched, his eyes tired but clear. It started as an affair, but it turned into something more. Something real. Holloway stayed silent, letting him talk. She was smart, ambitious. She challenged me. After my wife passed, I didn't think I'd feel alive again. But with her, I did. He sat down behind the desk, exhaling heavily. We kept it quiet. For years. I gave her opportunities, yes. But she earned them. She worked harder than anyone in that damn building. And what about your son? Holloway asked. Gregory flinched. That was never supposed to happen. Derek saw her at a company event. He was smitten. I should have ended it right there. But Monique said if she dated Derek, no one would suspect what she and I had. So you agreed to let your son date your mistress? I was weak, Gregory admitted. I told myself it was temporary, that eventually Derek would move on, and she and I could be together openly. Holloway stared at him. You watched your son fall in love with her. You watched him propose, and you stood at his wedding, knowing everything. Gregory's voice cracked. I know how it sounds. Did Derek know? No, Gregory whispered. Not until maybe that night. Back at the forensics lab, Holloway's phone buzzed. It was Dr. Camille Holloway, and she sounded urgent. Marcus, we just finished analyzing the fabric under Monique's fingernails. Let me guess, same fabric as Derek's suit? No, that's the thing. It's similar. Merino wool, silk blend, but not the same weave, not the same dye. Holloway straightened up. You're telling me it didn't come from Derek? No, it came from a different tuxedo. One from the same designer, but a different custom order. And guess who wore it? Gregory Langston, Holloway said quietly. Camille continued. Also, there's another detail. Monique had a high concentration of sleeping pills in her stomach, but barely any in her bloodstream. What does that mean? It means the pills were put into her mouth after she died. Someone tried to make it look like a suicide. The puzzle pieces clicked into place, fast, brutal, and damning. Gregory found out Monique had played him. She wasn't planning to build a life with him. She was planning to take everything. The final blow came from Monique's browser history and legal documents recovered from her home office. She had contacted an attorney to revise her prenuptial agreement. The revised contract stated that in the event of Derek's death, she would inherit 45% of Langston properties. She had also researched the inheritance rights of widows of majority shareholders, and specifically what would happen if Gregory died before Derek. She was playing both father and son, and Gregory knew it. Back at the precinct, Holloway briefed the team. Gregory Langston had motive. He felt used, betrayed, humiliated. He had opportunity. He was in that suite before the couple arrived. He had the means, strong enough to overpower her. And now, we have the physical evidence. Fabric fibers, DNA, and the staged overdose. Lieutenant Parks, watching from across the room, crossed her arms. Enough to arrest? Holloway nodded. Let's bring him in. That evening, Gregory Langston was taken into custody. He didn't resist. When he saw Derek waiting at the station in a side hallway, he froze. Son, don't, Derek snapped. His voice cracked like thunder. Don't call me that. Gregory's face fell. For the first time, the powerful businessman looked small. Broken. You ruined her. You ruined me. You ruined everything. And then he turned his back. Gregory sat in the interrogation room, hands folded, eyes fixed on the table. Why? Holloway asked quietly. Why kill her? Gregory closed his eyes. She laughed at me. When I told her I knew about the prenup, she said I was old, that I was just a step on the ladder, that she never loved me, never loved Derek, that she wanted the company, that she'd take it all because I made her believe she could. He swallowed hard. I didn't plan to kill her. I just wanted to stop her, to talk sense into her. But she wouldn't stop laughing. He trailed off. I panicked. I crushed the pills into wine. Laid her on the bed. I made it look like she gave up. Silence. I'm sorry, Gregory whispered. I never meant to hurt my son. Holloway stood. It's too late for sorry. 2 weeks after his arrest, Gregory Langston was formally charged with first-degree murder, obstruction of justice, and attempted evidence tampering. The press had a field day. Billionaire father kills son's wife on wedding night. Langston legacy destroyed from within. Atlanta's black royal family in ruins. Inside the courtroom, Derek Langston sat motionless as the charges were read. He wore a plain black suit. No designer labels. No Techstar swagger. Just grief, quiet and devastating. He hadn't spoken to his father since the day Gregory was arrested. And he hadn't returned to his company since the night Monique died. He was in every sense adrift. At the arraignment, Gregory Langston appeared older, almost unrecognizable. The proud, polished businessman was now pale, hunched and quiet. When asked to enter a plea, he spoke just one word. Guilty. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Even Holloway, watching from the gallery, didn't expect it to come that fast. The judge ordered a sentencing hearing for the following month. No trial. No contest. Just a man ready to take the fall, because deep down he already had. At sentencing, Derek finally spoke. He stepped up to the podium, his voice low but clear. Monique wasn't perfect. Neither was I. But she was mine, and we were trying. And on the night, I should have held her close. My own father was already planning how to make her disappear. Not just from my life, but from the world. His hands trembled. You didn't just kill her, Dad. You killed my faith and family. You made me question every hug, every word, every time you ever said you were proud of me. I lost my wife, but I also lost the man I used to look up to. He paused. I hope you rot in that cell. Not out of hate, but because you chose ego over love, control over trust, and silence over truth. Then he stepped down. He never looked at his father again. The judge sentenced Gregory Langston to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom was silent. Not even reporters clicked their cameras. Some tragedies are too intimate for noise. Later that week, Holloway stopped by Derek's condo to check in. The young man was packing. No assistants. No staff. Just silence. Leaving town, Holloway asked gently. Derek nodded. Yeah, I don't want to be Langston anymore. I don't want to be anything for a while. You'll come back, Holloway said. Maybe, Derek replied. But when I do, it won't be as a son or a husband, just a man trying to survive. They shook hands, and Holloway watched as another soul left the city, haunted by truths too heavy to carry. The Langston empire collapsed within 6 months. Stockholders pulled out. Partners cut ties. The once glorious brand was now a cautionary tale taught in law schools and leadership seminars. Some called it karma. Some called it tragedy. Holloway? He just called it human. Because when love is tangled with ambition, when pride outweighs honesty, and when power becomes personal, even the strongest families fall. 6 months later, the Grand Magnolia Hotel removed room 1901 from its online booking system. They called it routine renovations. But the staff knew. The walls had seen too much. And the memory of a bride in silver lace, lying cold in her wedding dress, had a way of lingering. Detective Marcus Holloway stood outside the old suite one rainy Thursday morning. He wasn't there on official business. No search warrant. No evidence bag. Just a quiet need to close a case. Not in the files, but in his chest. He looked down the hallway where Derek Langston had collapsed, where security guards found a man broken in more ways than one, where a father's shadow had fallen long before anyone realized it. Sometimes, Marcus thought, evil didn't look like a monster. Sometimes it wore a tuxedo, smiled for the cameras, and raised a toast to the very life it would soon destroy. Later that night, Holloway joined his sister Camille on the rooftop of their building. The city below glowed in soft orange and purple. Camille handed him a glass of whiskey. "To complicated endings," she said. He raised his glass. "And to people who never saw them coming." They drank in silence for a moment. Then Camille asked, "You think Derek will ever come back to Atlanta?" Marcus shook his head. "Not as who he was. That version of him died in that suite." Camille looked away. "You think he'll ever forgive his father?" Another pause. "I think some betrayals go too deep. Not because we can't forgive, but because we can't forget who we were before it happened." Weeks later, in a quiet beach town outside Savannah, a man checked into a rental house under a different name. He wore plain clothes. No watch. No rings. He walked to the water every morning. Alone. Sometimes with a notebook. Never with his past. It was Derek Langston. Or at least what remained of him. He didn't talk much. Didn't explain. He just watched the waves come in again and again, washing over the sand like they were trying to erase something that didn't want to be forgotten. Back in Atlanta, Gregory Langston sat in a concrete cell. He received no visitors, no letters, only silence. He was once a man who built towers across the city. Now he spent his days staring at the cracks in the wall, trying not to remember the sound of Monique's last breath, or the look in his son's eyes. Regret has no parole. Some stories don't end with justice. They end with damage, with lives shattered, with names erased, with love turned into a weapon, and ambition into a curse. What happened on the night of Derek and Monique's wedding wasn't just murder. It was a collapse of trust, of legacy, of a family that looked perfect until it wasn't. And in the echo of wedding bells, Atlanta learned a painful truth. Sometimes the person who raises the glass is also the one who breaks it. If this story shocked you as much as it shocked us, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone who loves true crime, and subscribe to the channel for more unbelievable stories like this, posted every day. Because sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who destroy us. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.